Hi, welcome to Watcher DM. I'm Gabriel. Today I'm going to be doing a flip through and review of the Season of the Snail adventure for Troika RPG. This is number 4 in their 1 in 5 series of adventure modules. The construction of these books is consistent and relatively unique. It has a kind of newsprint style paper. It feels rather thin, but it is durable. And they have this kind of folding cover on either side here. And so you usually find the maps on the interior of the cover and a blank page on the inside of each side there. So not exactly a robust usage of end paper, but still very effective for what it's trying to do. Now, the Season of the Snail is a little unique in terms of adventure modules in that it simultaneously describes a whole neighborhood of Troika, the city of Troika, called the Rildown, and it presents a festival that is apparently a regular festival, although the last one hasn't happened in 14 years, according to the book here. Although you could imagine a world where you have regular Season of the Snails occurring year after year, and maybe implement new features and adventures within the context of the Season of the Snail. And then finally, of course, it presents a kind of event slash location based adventure within the context of the festival, again, within the context of the neighborhood. So it's kind of like a snail. It's inside of a shell. Of course, we have our table of contents here with the introduction, a description of the Bond Merchant House and their hiring of the PCs. The Artist Merchant House is a rival house and their plan to kidnap the Primus Bon Mungus. And then you've got a few rumors about the Festival of the Snail from 2 different perspectives. The first foray into the Rilldowns, at the festival, where to go, what to encounter, the hideout. This is kind of the end of the scenario, and then finishing the scenario, NPCs and creatures, and then a Friends of Melsonia, I think, ad bit at the end, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Pretty sure that's what this is. Yeah, this is the 1-5 series, and these are the list of friends of Melsonia. Of which... yeah, not a friend apparently. I'll have to remedy that. The introduction here is that Mungus Bon is excited to go and attend this long-delayed festival, and it's not really the kind of place that an upper-class Troikan would normally go. So his troubled family that's a multi-spouse kind of scenarios, like polyamorous kind of thing going on here, which is awesome. Want to hire the PCs basically to protect him, subversively. They don't want it to be obvious that you're protecting Mungus. In fact, he would be quite upset if you were and would try and dodge you, basically. So one of the kind of initial things that comes out in this reading bit here is the introduction of Cofflee, which is a coffee-like drink made from the husks of roasted bugs. It's really weird, and the co-fly is the bug. Yeah, I found that whole part of this a little out of reach for me, but it's novel, it's unique, it's very Troika, very, very weird. Of course, the art for this was done by Shu Yi Zhang of Igloo Tree, and of course Melsonia, and so you get some fantastic, very colorful, interesting art, and then the characterizations are quite fun. The hiring of the PCs is presented in a couple of ways, and I actually really like this part in that it gives you kind of a bullet list of the takeaways that you can kind of deliver to the PCs in a slightly more condensed fashion. It is still pretty verbose, but it does get to the point pretty well, I think. I definitely leaned on that to get my mother on board with the adventure. The artist merchant house is really interesting in that all these guys are brothers, air quotes, but it seems like maybe they're all clones with slight variations. And they all have a name that is a variation of the word Alex. So you might meet them a number of different times and maybe mistake one Alex for another. That didn't really come up in our playthrough, but it's possible I ran this wrong, as is always the case with these. And then this is the plan. The artist brothers are, planning to kidnap Mungus and insert a weird, like, spy slug into his spine, and then basically spy on his merchant house. And if it's caught, if the slug is detected, their plan is to kind of pin it on the snail festival, because they do not recognize the difference between slugs and snails, something that heliculturists do know the difference between. So it's a flawed plan, as you would expect from a bunch of nitwits. I think they're Bezosian in their design a little bit, even if not physically. I don't know, something reminds me there. 12 Rumors About the Festival of the Snail is a section here broken up into 2d6s. So if you ask someone from the Rill Downs, known as a realtor, they're going to have a bunch of rumors for you that are largely positive about the festival. And here you'll get, asking anyone else, these are largely negative opinions about the festival. And these can be useful, and, it's nice to have these on hand for when when the PCs engage with NPCs. Just go ahead and roll a little bit and have some fun expressing some of these in the characterizations of your Troika NPCs. The first foray into the Rill Downs is probably going to take place with the PCs heading into the Helix house. And it may well be before the festival. And so that's kind of described here, where you'll head into the Helix house, and there's people there, including Mungus. And so if the PCs want, they can engage with Mungus and kind of befriend him independently. And that's a good way to kind of sneak into the festival as his protectors. And then, should they draw attention to themselves in the Rill Downs, there's this chance of realtor adolescence coming, and I'll just read it here. In that case, 6 adolescents will walk up to them and show those decadent Troican fascists that they'd better leave the realtors alone. They only intend to rough the characters up a little. Should things make a more violent turn, they will flee. Should one of the attackers get killed, 2 Helix guards, not yet on duty, will take note, intervene, and remember the faces of the characters. And you got the artist Spies hanging out here as well, and she will show up throughout the adventure, although I will admit that in my playthrough, she did not make a very dramatic appearance at any point. And then you get into, this is Mungus in costume. It's a nice little snail helmet. Went to the festival. They connected with Mungus kind of right away. They actually met him to go with him. And then Mungus kind of has like a table for where he will appear next if you lose track of him. This is actually probably the most critical component of this adventure, is that you're going to be tracking time. It takes, I think, about a half an hour to move from location to location. It takes at least 1/2 an hour. So your clock is this clock here. Now, unfortunately, the clock is wrong. Like at 12 p.m., this would really be 12 a.m., and this would be after midnight, right? So 2 a.m. is when Mungus heads home. So there's a little bit of confusion here. But that said, the clock itself is actually structurally quite sound. It's really pretty good. But the caveat to that, I will get to that in a little bit. Let's talk through some of these other things here. So the Helix Guard, this is largely just about these characters, the Helix Guard, who are going through. My PC is barely engaged with them, mostly because in my playthrough, Mungus never got abducted. The Artist Brothers strike. So the way that this is established is basically if the PCs, if anything happens to them, if they get separated, there is a chance, a die roll chance that some of these things will happen, and that the henchmen will pop out and run off with Mungus. At no point did actually I'll talk about this a little bit. At the point that they finally lost track of Mungus, it was already like 1 a.m. So she had to go find him quickly and kind of get him sorted out. And at that time, I rolled, and he had not gotten kidnapped. The henchman had not gotten to him. So then we get into where to go. And we did explore basically all of these locales. With the possible exception of the end here, the old, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, it's Salyangov Distillery. If I butchered that, I'm sorry. She may have popped in there briefly, but again, he never got kidnapped, so they didn't really ever have a thing to kind of deal with there. The Northern Rill Downs, basically each of these locations, you're going to have a D6 table of random encounters with a separate D6 table of NPC encounters. The NPC encounter that I hit basically in every location was Gilvin the Thaumaturge. So if he shows up on the table, you can be sure that I rolled that entry when I rolled an NPC encounter. And almost across the board, I rolled NPC encounters in most locations, even when it was unlikely. So that was pretty indicative of my playthrough of this. If I were to run this again, I would actually probably eschew the dice rolling for random encounters and just set up a few encounters. Just straight up go this is going to happen at this place should they arrive here. Use the tables to generate that, of course, but set it up ahead of time and make sure that there is some ups and downs in the tension wheel, because as I ran it, it felt pretty tensionless. And not for lack of trying, right? I'm trying to use the book as it is offered, but I think that the opportunity here to not hit a random encounter of sufficient threat level, not. Also, I should mention this was for one PC, and that PC is a monk of a monk swordmaster of Talak. So she's like crazy powerful. So combat was not an issue for her. The extremity artists are weird, but did not ultimately pay off, I think, that much to the PC. The Bridges Quarter, I think you get... Yeah, I think the Bridges, when they went to the Bridges, they only dealt with falling into the river once, which was kind of cool. And that's when they lost Mungus, basically right at the end. River Boulevard was fun. You get a little market there. But again, I think Gilvin Thaumaturge made an appearance. And they had the encounter with the trolling trolls. So there's some fun encounters there. Real Down Center is a place they spent a number of moments. They spent some time here kind of mucking around on this fun fair, but we didn't hit the... there's a 1 in 6 chance of an accident that sends Mungus or a PC flying. Well, I didn't roll a 1, so... the Helicultures, they went through here. This was an interesting little spot, but ultimately it's just snail farms, and so they ended up going from here to the House of Raptures, which is the first of the kind of dungeon locations inside of the Rildown. Now, Mungus went in to enjoy what the House of Rapture had to offer, and the PC did not. Instead, the PC patrolled the outside, which meant that the statement here about what's happening in the back... This is a sexy scene, so I'm going to kind of skip over it. Basically, you have weird sensual experience with the snails. It's very weird. This is probably like straight up like X card territory for a lot of people. So, be careful with this adventure like ahead of time. It's kind of weird that they didn't really put. I don't. Maybe they did, but I don't think they put a content warning at the front of this thing. But yeah, there's some weird some weird stuff in here. Not that I object. I think it's fine. I think it's fun if you can have that kind of fun. Like have it. But pretty weird. There is 11. The back door here is locked and barred from the inside. Can be opened with brute force, which is how the henchmen will enter should they discover that Mungus is in the House of Rapture. So in an attempt to kidnap Mungus, I had these guys trying to break in, and my PC showed up and handily beat the crap out of them. So they never got to kidnap Mungus from that. Then you get to the Stinks. This is the old Sayonga's distillery. And again, I think she never really engaged with this and did not have that issue. And then what to encounter. So this is the list of encounters that you're going to find listed throughout these entries here. So random encounters, Snail Ball games, page 39. Now, to the book's credit, they give you the page numbers. It is actually quite easy to navigate through this book and kind of get to the place you need to be. But the writing here, like that could have been 2 paragraphs easy. And if I'm being completely honest, I think a bulleted list would have probably helped me to run this a little more smoothly. This is partly down to just how the Troika books are kind of written in general. They tend to have, it's a variety. It's going to be a variety of writing styles. This is more of an eat the book style book in terms of how the prose are written. So it's not trying to be a very functional reference at the table, despite kind of demanding that you have a very functional reference at the table because it is so randomly generated. The Snail of 1,000 Shells is a parade, I think, of some strange type. We ran into that. Dangerous Animal, we had one of these show up. Again, my PC was ridiculous combat capabilities, so not a problem. A food stall has caught fire happened. We had the trolling trolls happen. So realistically, we did end up touching all of the events here, but none of them really manifested in very much tension. The NPCs, we did not encounter very many different NPCs. Gilvin the Thaumaturge, I think, was the most frequent. I think at some point she interacted with Ancient Gua. And Sulliver the Depressed Athlete joined her briefly for some stuff. And then you've got the food here that can be purchased at the food stalls, the drinks and merchandise, and then you get to the hideout. Now this is the dungeon of the adventure, if there was such a thing, and my PC never made it here because they never had to, because Mungus never got kidnapped. So I did read this. I think it is well written. It's enjoyable. It was an enjoyable read. Unfortunately, I do feel that this whole bit of the adventure is kind of left off if the dice don't go a certain way. And that was a very unfortunate realization as I was playing through this. So there's a brief discussion about finishing the scenario, which did in fact happen because, of course, the PC protected Mungus, which... Another thing to consider here is that by not engaging with the hideout, the PC had succeeded, right? It was a resounding success, which is an interesting kind of outcome that, like, you didn't do anything that created any tension, but it was a success. It's just a little out of sorts, I think. You get NPC stat blocks for, and a description of each of the characters, including Mungus Bond, the Realtor Adolescents, the Artist Spy, the Artist Henchman, the 2 Artist Brothers, the Weeping Slug, and the Hatchlings and the Slugminder. Again, Slug never engaged with Mungus because there was no abduction. Friends of Nelsonia list, and you get your 1 in 5 kind of description of what's going on here. I think this program has ended, so I believe you no longer can submit these to Nelsonian Arts Council. Although you should keep an eye out. Austin has written one that got accepted, and I think it's going to be the last 1 in 5 adventure from the Troika people, called the Megamidden. So keep an eye out for that. And I am currently playing through Eye of the Aeons, which I look forward to flipping through and reviewing soon. That is my flip through and review of Season of the Snail for Troika. If you like these videos, I hope you'll hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of them, you should subscribe. And if you want to be notified when they come out, you can hit the bell icon. Of course, I do offer to paid Patreon tiers early access to these videos. You'll get them a week before anybody else. So if you absolutely need to be on the bleeding edge of reviewing something that came out years ago, I've got you covered. Anyway, if you like the work that I do encourage you to support me over on Patreon. It's kind of the best way for me to continue funding writers and artists for the creative work that we do. And yeah, I love making it. I'm not going to stop. So, if you don't have it, don't trip, dog. Like, please enjoy. But if you do have it and, you want to support somebody kind of trying to create in a unique and novel way, I hope you'll do so. And yeah, until next time, thanks for playing.